Also, welcome back to the Biz World channel, the EMBC network with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic. Today's topic is a very dear topic to myself, and I'm going to go with this. So, leadership has long been defined by structure, authority, and control. But what if the real power of leadership lies somewhere else, in connection, in understanding, and how we bring out the best in people? Today, we're joined by Isabelle Fortin, founder of Against the Ordinary, a leadership consulting firm focused on helping organizations move beyond traditional command and control models into a more human centered, high performance approach. With a background in the Royal Canadian Air Force and years of experience advising leaders, Isabelle brings a unique perspective on what it truly means to lead in today's world. Isabelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Hurricane. I'm so intrigued by your name.
Well, it does. It started in corporate, so I have no shame in the game here. I can share with you the story behind it, and you might even address it in today's show because, we had a brief discussion. You're in Canada, I'm in the U.S. Well, I mean that's my usual world. I'm in the UAE now, but at the end of the day, I come from corporate, and that's kind of where I spent 30 plus years of my career in management leadership and senior leadership. But I have to say this came in because I've worked in New York for the most part. In New York City is a very fast pace, and corporate life is very happening, and it's very I would say it's a kind of empowering. I don't know, crazy, whatever. We can use a lot of attributes and descriptives to it, but it is, and so I had a chance to work in PA and one of the insurance companies there, and so obviously I came in with that the vibe of New York, and so when you move from state to state, the vibe kind of shifts. I mean, it's very known in politics or in the corporate world, and all the business structures. People have different tendencies. So I came in with the New York energy, if I would call it that way. And so in my realm in business development and operations, they used to see me as like, oh my God, here comes Hurricane Hisham, because that's my first name. And then it got to the point where it became Tasmanian Devil, and then it was in between the two, and then they're literally stuck with it. Hurricane H, here comes Hurricane H, here comes Hurricane H. So years later, a couple of years later, I decided to start my media company in the healthcare because I felt that there's no uh, I make a joke about it all the time. It's we have the weather channel, but we have no health channel or health
Hmm.
radio, and that's kind of like what it started. So that was my idea of bringing people in front of what the healthcare is and so on and so forth. Of course, that developed because in my sales and business, piece of it, I added the business world channel, started as a sales channel. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but really, that's how Hurricane became actually me, and it's really who I am. I mean, and in a way, I do actually have. Today, I guess the show is about leadership, and we might even criticize my my name because I come as a thunder, but that's not the idea. I mean, it is just about operations and about getting things done. That's how I like it. But what we're going to talk today about is more about the style and how we go from, like, as I stated, command and control, which is like doing it the old school way and doing it with more empathy. I think that's your expertise. So that I hope I answered that question.
You did. Thank you for that. And I can totally see it. You go from a big city where it's fast paced, where people don't take time to breathe, or they actually have to schedule the time to breathe. And you go to a small town, and they're like, "Oh my God, take a breather and don't rush me." And yeah, I say that. I heard a quote once. I don't know if that would apply, but the quote was, "Don't live in New York once in your life, but leave before it makes you hard, and live in California once in your life, but leave before it makes you soft." And I thought that's such an accurate read on just the overall vibe that I get as a tourist, because I've lived in neither of these places. But yeah, I like that. We're and it only proves how adaptable we really are as human beings, is that we adapt to our environment.
True. And listen, I mean, I do come from my younger days. I mean, I was in Morocco, so the whole different culture and, and aspect of things. Although my school was a little bit of a dynamic school, and we've learned a lot of business, stuff, and it was a business type of school. And so again, cultures. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you learn, and I I did have the opportunity to work for one of the best, I would say, companies in the world in terms of, training and culture, Walt Disney World. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of a whole different spin on
Mm.
things, on how it works, and especially in the customer service area and client services and things like that, how you treat people. But I didn't, not even in the management styles, because I've had at the time I was still in entry level, and I had several levels of, I guess, supervisory, folks, and from literally supervisors to directors and area regional, and the whole Epcot director, was a friend at the time, and so I learned all these things. But when I went to New York, which again, when I was a kid, the idea was like, if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And so that was like, okay, that's where I'm going. And, it started there. And when I got into the corporate world, I mean, I learned the hard way, like the command and control, which is like boots on the ground, tough tone. And, everybody is fearful for their job. And that's how it was. I mean, for a minute, that's what I learned, especially when I became a manager. I
Mhm.
had an actual authority figure that actually almost made me look that way, and I kind of followed suit because that's what I had to do to survive, I guess, or to make it. And then until I realized that was not a cool thing. And I do want to share a story, and then it's all yours, Isabel. So when I did that, this is the command and control, and environment where you really like, who's going to be gone this week, who's going to be stuff, and everybody's feeling that the door is going to be swinging on their back, and so on and so forth. And one time, some of the managers that were under my leadership, they came to me and complained, like, "What's going on? I mean, we can't do this anymore." They challenged me, and I'm like, "Folks, you guys are working with me. I'm working with you, but we have a boss that's giving us these commands and these authoritative, directives, and you know how it is. If you go to the meeting, you're shaking if things don't add up, right?" Was like, well, we have to stop this. And like, okay, well, let me make you a deal. So, and I went and I called a meeting with him, and we're friends, by the way. So this is the funny thing. Like, he was a mentor of mine, and we're still good friends. But at the time, I kind of was a rebel kid, and I kind of was younger, and I challenged him, and I brought the team in front of him. We had the meetings, like, all right, dude, I'm not gonna make the names here, but dude, this is the team, and they're complaining about they're fearful for their job. Every day they feel like they're undermined and or just being talked down to. And I'm always the one that's bringing that bad news, and I'm like literally the whip, and I don't want to be doing that, and they're not happy. And so I look at them literally to the side because they were sitting at a round table, and they look at me like I had three heads. I'm like, bro, you just said this is what we're here for because you complained. I'm bringing it to the table, so let's challenge the man. They turned on me. And actually, not only they turned on me, they wanted me to get fired. So they actually played behind my back. And I discovered this because I had a lot of good connections within the department. And so I literally found out that they were putting a case, building a case against me to actually kind of get me out because
Mm.
I challenged the leadership. And so again, I think this story is really relevant to your, changing from that mindset to a whole new way where you actually care for your team, where you actually get them to deliver more, which I became that person eventually, where, it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about true leadership and caring for people and really being there for them. So I'm going to hold that. And it's really you because you challenge the traditional leadership models.
That's
And,
my full-time job.
so let's talk about that, because really, the picture I just depicted is really wrong. And I know, and I admitted it. I've known that then, but sometimes I was also an employee, and my
Mm.
job, it's my career, and if you challenge the wrong guy or gal at the time, your job is gone, and so that can be impactful. And that's the fear that everybody has, or at least had, in these forms of leadership, environments. So what says you, Isabel?
Oh my God, so much to unpack here. Well, no, command and control doesn't work. It's been proven over and over and over in every part of the world that command and control doesn't work. However, there are circumstances where it is absolutely necessary. And I always like to use the same example. If the building's on fire, it is not the time to ask everybody how they're feeling about it. Right? So there are some appropriate moments in leadership where command and control is the right thing to do. Um, but maybe 1 or 2% of the time, the rest of the time, they're not in your service. If you're the leader, if you're the boss, you're in the service of your employees, of your team members. How can I support you? What is the problem and what is the root of the problem? And that's what I find in the corporations and the companies that I work with is they're trying to put a band-aid on an open femur. It's no, look at the root of, look at the cause of the problem and have enough courage to address what is there instead of just adding on and adding on and adding on. Listen, if you break your leg and you don't straighten it and we put 17 inches of gauze on top of it, well, guess what? Maybe it looks prettier, but your leg is still broken. So let's address the broken leg, right? And I find that most leader, it is not a lack of willingness, it's a lack of know-how. You don't know how. And middle management is the worst place to be because you're in service of your team. You're literally caught between the wall and the paint, right? So you're in service of two masters. So your team, you're there to support your team to provide them what they need, but but you have deliverables, and you also most of the time in middle management you also have like work to do. Your full-time employment is not to be quote unquote the boss, right? So you have some admin things to do. So it's all about finding balance, but finding courage to address what's there. And in your story, in the story you just shared with me, that's exactly what you had. Is listen, you guys came to me with a complaint. I'm going to have the courage to bring you to the next level and address the situation. Now, what I'm hearing is they were lacking courage to address it with you. But in an organization that's going to thrive long term, everybody needs to just come to the table and say, okay, I recently, one of my team member, I didn't lose my patience, but I addressed something and I did it very firmly because I was beginning to lose patience. And every single person on my team have um, the right to come to me and say, I didn't like that tone. And then we come together and I will always own up to, and not what I call a fake apology. And any, for me, any apology is, I'm sorry that you, no, 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 no. It's not, I'm sorry that you. A real apology is, I'm sorry for the part I played in this conversation and how my tone affected you. Now that's a real apology. Now, how can we come together and make sure that this doesn't happen anymore? That's having the courage, right? So it is shifting. I feel that in the corporate world right now, it is shifting. And you know what? The generations after mine are pushing for that shift. And I applaud that because it is oh so necessary, but is messy right now. So I understand the leaders, and that's why I support the leaders. I understand the leaders going, okay, yeah, well, yesterday I could say that, and today I can't say that no more. So like, where's the course? Where is that line that I can't cross over anymore? Like, how can I adapt? And that's what I literally do for a living. Is I work with the team leader so that they start getting to know the individuals, because it is about individuality. It is about bringing your natural abilities, your talent, your talents with an S, your strength, and bringing that in service of the mission, the vision, the team, the bottom line, and the individual. When we tap into the unique abilities of everybody, everybody wins. Everybody, especially that person. So that's basically my bread and butter.
Well, listen, you're there's so much in there, and I mean, there's words that we just throw in right now. I mean, leaders, right, and boss, and you talked about, especially in middle management. I mean, there's something we call power trips, and when you're a
Yeah,
newly, what do you call it, grown manager or level of manager, right? Sometimes you tend to want to like prove your point and prove that you got this and that you got the ability to control and make things happen. And I think a lot of that is a mistake. But I mean, it took me a minute to learn that. I mean, to be honest with you, even when I was in that position and a new leader that had a position of authority and I had a big team and so on and so forth, I know that it was wrong because I didn't feel right about it, and
mhm.
I try to deliver it to a degree that is the least impactful. But nevertheless, every time, I mean, I was still in that mix myself, as you said. I was literally in between the two. Like you want to make these, your team has to be not your friends, but you rely on them to succeed, right? They're the ones who are actually going to make the things happen, and you help on them, as part of the team. But if you're also feeling that pressure that is constant, and then they're not responsive enough to it, or at least the way it is. But then I learned that that's not the only way they can do this. There's other ways to do this, and you just hit on it. Is the idea of kind of understanding the team, working with the team, being there for them. And yes, you still have a job. And by the way, it doesn't matter what level you are, because I've gone all the way up to the top of the I guess the hierarchies. But even at the highest level, there's always another layer beyond you. I mean, you get as a
The
CEO, you have a board.
shareholders, yeah.
Shareholder, you have a
Mhm.
board. So
Yeah.
you still got a pressure no matter what. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's business as usual, right? You got to still produce. So it becomes a problem. But I think there's also another point that I wanted just to highlight is the idea of know-how, as you mentioned. I mean, not everybody is trained. Even if you go to business school and management, there's theory and there's practical stuff. And working with humans is a whole different ball game than actually learning in a book. Here's what you're supposed to do. But because
Mhm.
personalities, I remember when I was literally in an internship overseas, and there was a. I have to say this person did impact my life as I would say a mentor, even though I only met him throughout the internship. He was actually a pianist, and as a French pianist, but he had so much life ahead of him and expertise. He was retired. It was in this nice little hotel that I had the privilege to work, at. And he had told me, like, the highest or the hardest thing that I would find in my career path was the human factor. And that's where most of the problems occur in the business world.
Yeah.
And he actually gave me that heads up then. But I had to discover it on my own. As an employee, as I went up, obviously I felt some of these conditions myself, because you have clashes, and sometimes, although I had a personality that was very open, so I never really had problems. But I've seen it, around me with other staff members or employees, and it's always a problem, right, when you see that. And so again, understanding that, learning the curves, and also, like, having the tricks on how to do uh, the right thing, if you want to call it that way. Not, and that's the other thing. Like, there's this whole notion of being a boss, and there's a lot of bosses out there, but very little leaders, I would say. Now, you come from, a Royal Canadian Air Force, and so it's a military environment. So there is a lot of discipline. There's a lot of hierarchies. There's a lot of authority, a lot of directives and orders, right? And people tend to follow these things because it is super important to follow these things, otherwise things go wrong, right? And I love what you said, even the idea that you address things, sometimes you have to be firm. Now, firm doesn't mean condescending. It just means that you have to drive the point through, and there's consequences to not delivering and stuff like that. So it is a there's almost a balance that needs to be met. And typically that's what we lose as leaders in general, because unless we have enough practice and training and or consultation with experts such as yourself, we might not know how to really maneuver these things. And now I think more and more it's shifting. But you said something else, is that the generations are different. And so, listen, I'm an X generation here, so
So am I.
so we learn differently, and then you have the millennials, and they have a different work style. Now you have the Gen Z. I mean, and it's losing track. I mean, I think we're having a dilemma now, because you're like, listen, there was a time a couple of years back, I couldn't we can even rely on people showing up to interviews and or even start dates. It's just crazy, like how the mindsets are not, This is not even getting into the business or even giving tasks or giving assignments. It's becoming very difficult. So those are just a couple of points that I wanted to highlight from your interaction here. So what was, by the way, what was your experience in the Royal Canadian Air Force? Because I mean that's a whole different world, and I do believe and respect people that come from any military background because they come in with a very disciplined level of mindset, compared to I would say civilians. Because one of my mentors is also was a former captain of the U.S. Air Force, and I've learned a lot of stuff about how leadership operates under his command, literally. So let's talk about that as well.
Um, my experience in the military was surprising. It's what came after that was shocking, actually. So you'd think, and everybody does, and so did I when I joined. We all have the notion that the military is command and control, and it is. I'm not going to deny that. However, what is the military is very good at doing is taking what you are naturally good at and putting it in service of the mission, because the mission comes first. So it comes before the ego of everybody. It comes before your personality. It comes before your rank. It comes before everything. So what that does is that the military is extremely good at taking the natural abilities and putting in service of, again, mission, the vision, the team, and the bottom line. So what that does is that if, I'll say, Corporal so and so, 6 years in, has always been the platoon's marksman, and but new recruit shows up and naturally better, even less skilled or less training, they are naturally better marksmen, well, then they get the job, period. Why? Because they're going to do it better, they're going to do it faster, they're going to do it with less margins of error, and we don't care about Corporal so and so's ego. And when we do that, we become extremely effective. Now, the other thing that the military offers that the corporate world doesn't, mind you, in the very large companies, they have understood that, and put that, they've implemented the same structure, is that in the military, in order to get a promotion, so to become being a leader or being in a leadership role, you need three things. The first one is you need time in. So let's say in the Canadian military, when I was a recruit, so that was way too long that I care to share. In order to get to the level of having the promotion to corporal, you would need 4 years in. The second thing is you need a certain qualification level in your trade. So you need to develop the skills of the thing you're going to be doing. And the last thing is the most important one is you need leadership training. Because if you're the best salesperson in your company, maybe you know sales, but maybe you don't know leadership. And these are two completely different set of skills. So one can have the natural abilities to be a salesperson and not be a good leader naturally. And some people can be very like natural born leaders and not be trained in that particular skills, but in that particular skill. But in the corporate world, or at least in the companies that I help, um, they have they take the best sales rep, and I always take sales because the sales department is usually the department that is well funded in a company. So that's the reason I take that example is they will train them to do better cold calls. They will train them for a whole bunch of things. And then they take the best salesperson and they say, wow, you hit your numbers every month. We're going to put you in charge of sales. And that's where they lose everybody because maybe that person isn't good in leadership. But the problem is they never train the leadership. And that's where they go kaput, right? They go haywire with their planning. So that was my experience in the military. And the big clash when I left the military and I joined the corporate world is, well, my first job, the first level, because there was a big corporation, so the first level above me, I looked at that person and I went, holy goodness gracious, that person doesn't know what it is to bleed. And I wrongly accused her of just being a bad boss because I thought everybody knew what leadership was because that's where I come from. And so I quit that job 5 months in and I, went to work for the second company and I went, okay, it's more of the same. And then the third company, it was still more of the same. And it took me a while to figure out that it's just about training. In the civilian world, we don't train leadership. And leadership is like everything else, it can be learned. We just have to bother. And most companies don't. And that's why they have a high turnover and they waste so much money by not looking at how can we train this person to be the most efficient leader possible for the team that they're going to lead. Because you're right, Hurricane, I love saying your name. Um, you're right. Being a boss and being a leader, nope, not the same thing. And being a
Isabel,
manager and being a leader, not the same thing either.
well,
So,
look, well,
yeah,
I'm listening to you, Isabel. Sorry, it's amazing because it's two different worlds, and you literally, I mean, you described my world in a lot of ways. Because to your point, so I have another background in martial arts, and the martial arts is almost the same as military. So
yes,
you don't just go to the next level until you earn that next level. So you have to
yes,
be able, and then we at that level, you're able to train and stuff. So it makes so you learn some of these skills, because it's almost that's what they call martial arts. They are arts of war in a way,
mhm,
right? And so, but and I was in sales, and to your point, that's exactly one thing that I've seen happen over and over as a mistake, whereby you want to reward the highest performing person, and you like, okay, when I want to give them more money, so I'm going to put them in a management position because that's when the next money is. But what you do is you kind of like, that's not their forte for the most part. That's not they have no idea. And by the way, being a good, hierarchy level and strategist, you will not make that mistake because you will know, first of all, you don't want to take your top, performer from top performance, but you do want to reward them somehow. You have to figure out what they're good at. I mean, if that's all there, and I've had actually agents, or salespeople, if you want to call them that way, that were the best at what they did. And even when I actually said, maybe would you consider even getting into a different role? No, I don't want to lead people. I don't want to know, what other people are doing. I just want to do the stuff that I do, make it happen, make my money. So you have that attitude. And then you have the other type of people. They're like, they just want to, they do a good job, but they don't want to continue with that. Now they want to get into the next level. I want the management. And to your point, being manager doesn't mean you're a leader. That's just the title, and it could be completely misconstrued, in the real world. And so you're right. Like sometimes, to really make effective leaders, to your point, training is one, and that is the least, that's available. I mean, I would not say across all companies, but a lot of companies have. Listen, I've done corporate for 32 years, and I can tell you, it's not a course that people are signing up for or it's available to you at all times. I mean, some companies are recently I've seen it more and more where they have like companies such as yours coming in and kind of helping them identifying and training some of their supervisory level to mid management and so on and so forth to get them a little bit more training. But to be leading a team, you're managing humans, you're managing emotions, you're managing families. I mean, literally, because these humans that you're working with, they have an extension to themselves. They have kids, they have spouses, significant others, things like so it's a lot of things. I mean, and when you look at them just like they're a performer, boom, we got to just do this, you forget all the other stuff. And this is where I think you talk and focus on human-centered leadership, which basically shifts the paradigm from they're just employees to like they're really human, We have to get them, to think that way and to feel that way, and therefore to perform better. And psychologically speaking, if you can get people to feel that connection with you, they'll do more. And I'll give you a good example. One time I had such a great relationship with my teams, and as a matter of fact, it's so funny. I have a text from someone that I've groomed many years and trained many years, and one of the top performers. She just invited me to, she's opening her own agency, and she said, hey, I'd like you to be there. And we haven't seen each other for a few years. And, even my message, I can't be there because I'm overseas. However, you do deserve it. And I know that she deserves it because she put the time, she learned the stuff, and she does that. But what the reason I'm giving this example is the relationship with your team. Like, you stay along with your team, you support your team. When I was in the company with them, I was always there. And frankly, a lot of people always followed me in other places. I'm saying I'm the best of the best, but I do consider myself, being good at what I do in terms of, stuff. And it's not just me saying it. I mean, another example, there's a time where a company shut down. I took a whole team with me because there was nothing else for them. So I started my own agency, which is actually what I have today
Mm-hmm.
as a consulting agency and a brokerage, because I needed to have a home for them. So that just to give you an example of, like, these are not just employees that you can dismiss, overnight and just, hey, you're fired, right? No, these are people, so you have to be caring. And by the way, I have to look at it this way. I'm just as a human as them, and I also have responsibilities, and that could happen to me too. And did happen to me, like everybody else. Like, so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what level you are. There's always someone that can say, you know what, thank you very much. It's been real. Have a good day. So this human factor is a huge thing. And to your experience when you actually went from military into the civil world, if you want to call it that way, it was not the same, because to your point, that structure that is like, let's prepare someone to really lead, it's not there 100%.
Yeah.
And so people are just figuring it out as they go. And by the way, that's usually what's been happening out there. But there are traits to leaders that, to your point, they may not be, like, I've had many people who were not the best performers, but they were the ones who actually be there. They make things happen. You don't have to tell them what to do. They make things happen. They actually help others without even, they volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And that they have the trait. They just have the ability to make things happen on their own. And you start seeing that, and people respected them, and people kind of listened to them. And that's really like what you're looking for when you start seeing some of the talent. Another thing you said, and alluded to, is sometimes talent in general, right? Acquisition of talent is also another one. And sometimes now, especially today with the with the algorithms, and I don't know if we're doing a good job anymore, to be honest with you. So I'm going to
Yeah.
leave that to you. But so let's talk about the human centered leadership, performance that you work with.
I just want to bounce back the last thing that you said. It, we don't make a good job at hiring people. We truly don't. We hire for skills, and yet we fire for attitude. Hire the attitude, train the skills. The skills can be learned much easier that you can change someone's attitude. The attitude is a reflection of who they are. If the attitude doesn't fit with yours, it doesn't mean they have a bad one and you have a good one. It's just that it's not aligned. So I recently worked with a small company, an accounting firm, 10 of them, and I was meeting with the associates, and they weren't talking against anybody, but they were saying, okay, well, this person is underperforming and underperforming and underperforming. And at one point I addressed the elephant in the room, because that's what I do. And I said, okay, hold off. Why are we keeping her? And I knew why they were keeping her. I just wanted them to voice it out. And says, well, she fits in the family. She has a good attitude. She has a good spirit. She's our golden retriever. Like, she's happy. She's very good at one part of her job, but she makes silly mistakes because of. I said, okay, go further. This is the answer. Go further. And they understood that the only problem they were having with this particular individual could be fixed with a 20-hour course that cost literally $300. So she says, yeah, but like we don't know, she just immigrated to this country, and we don't, and which it wasn't the factor for them. It's just that since I live in the French part of this country, she has to learn French. right? So she, on top of, being a mother and being a wife and having a house to take care of and blah, 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 and having a full-time job, they were saying, well, I don't know if she's going to have time to take that class. I said, okay, so have her take the class during working hours. It's 1 week. It's half of her
Worth it.
week. She works 40 hours a week. It's half of 1 week. And they kind of went, so this is going to resolve all of your problem. Train the skills. But the thing is, we hire quickly and we're slow to fire. Do the opposite. Hire slowly, fire quickly. If the person is a bad fit, regardless of how much money they bring to your company, fire them and trust. People are too nice. Trust that it's going to be the best thing for them too. Because if their attitude doesn't fit with your vision, guess what? Your vision doesn't fit with hers either. Hers or his, it doesn't matter. Um, but we tend not to do that because we are nice. And the one thing I tell all the leaders that I work with is stop being nice and start being kind. Being
Very
nice
nice.
is not telling you you have spinach in your teeth because I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. That's being nice. Being kind is telling you you have spinach in your teeth because I don't want you to spend the rest of your day going around and smiling at people with spinach in your teeth. That's the difference between the two. Addressing the elephant in the room and having the courage, we're back to courage again, having the courage to bring somebody in the office and say, what's up? Your numbers have been down. You're not performing like you usually are. What's up? How can I help you? What's going on? You don't have to share everything that's going on in your personal life. You can if you want. I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to support you in every way that I can. But what's up? Instead of saying your numbers have been down, and if they don't go back up, I'm gonna have to fire your ass. It That's the difference between nice and kind. What's up?
Isabel,
What can I do? And we
go ahead,
have the
Kat.
false, I just one last thing. We have the false, um, we keep saying business is business. Well, business is about people. 100% of your employees are people. The 100% of your collaborators are people. 100% of your suppliers are people, and 100% of your clients are people. Business is about people. We're here to serve one another. Just let's do that.
I
And
think
that's it.
if this message, first of all, anyone watching or listening, whether you're an employee or employer at any level, this is a very powerful piece of this particular discussion we have because at the end of the day, I think that's the mistake we've been taught over the years is that we talk business like it's a bunch of machines that are operating and that's all there is. And we keep forgetting the human piece of it and the empathy about it. And I think that's really the challenge. And that's what I discovered a long time ago. That example, the old one that says that you can get better with honey than vinegar, right? If you really start, operating in different mindset and seeing people for who they are, and really even a lot of studies have clearly showed this now, is that if you treat your employees in the best way and make them and give them the skills and train them and really understand them well and support them, they're your best asset. Therefore, everything else is going to happen. They're going to take care of your clients and your business and your customers, and you're never going to have a problem, and you're going to succeed. And you're right. There's a few things you said, Isabel. One is this idea about hiring and firing, right? Like I've always said this. I've terminated a lot. I fired zero, and the reason I say this distinction is because when I hire someone, I mean, I'll give them the opportunity, but also I know I'm going to give them every single piece of thing in the process: training, coaching, mentoring, being with them, being understanding if they have a family need, whatever. I mean, I've had many people over the years that had personalized, things that they could not attend, whatever, or you notice something about someone that is off. You talk to them and it's, the numbers are low. There's a reason. Let's see how we can work with it. Is it a shift? I had literally an employee one time who literally told me I divorced my husband because I'm never punctual. And this was a long time ago. And I said, okay, so I changed her schedule. That was it.
Mhm.
I addressed the schedule. She was the one of the best performers ever because her scheduling, timing was difficult for her to manage, and I just worked with her schedule. And it's a simple change. But had I not asked that question, I would have known, and I would have reacted the typical way, like, well, I'm sorry, your numbers are bad, you're out of here. And so when I terminate people, it's really the point where they did a disservice to themselves, one, and over time. The other thing is to your point is, um, you know, the numbers are there. I mean, every business has performance, right, attached to it. I mean, there's no business that's not out there for profit or to make, profit. And therefore, every employee knows that you're getting a salary, you're going to deliver a particular performance on a day-to-day basis, whatever. So it's known to be that. But the thing is, when people are hired, maybe that there's not enough tools, and that's the other thing. So lack of leadership, for example, can be just as destructive to a company, right? So you hire someone and you trust them to lead a team. They don't do a good job, and frankly, there's that big saying that we hear all the time: people quit bosses, not companies, because you know they just can't handle whoever's leading them, and these people are good to cover themselves in their tracks. So they I mean, unless you deep dive in, they're good at, like, CYA, right? Cover your butt. And it's a strategy that is very effective to a degree. And then sometimes they're also good at schmoozing up, because you manage up, you manage down. And so if they know how to cover those stuff, give you all the good picture, they always hide, they always give you the wrong stuff. And if you're that's the other thing, that leadership, the higher you are, the more entrenched you should be with your teams, as opposed to just too far away. And I see a lot of that, like, top leaders, they have no clue what's going on in their ranks. To me, I used to refer to me and, like, one of my best, actually my partner in the business, as field generals. Yes, we are the high commanding, authority, but in our line,
Mhm.
but we spend time with the team. Everybody, we know everybody on the personal level. We know what's going on. We spend, almost like out of 5 days in the office. We're 4 days out in the field. Unless we have a meeting that we need to actually be in the office, we're in the field. We're in the trenches. It makes a big difference, right? So giving orders from a distance and not knowing what's going on, it's not effective, and therefore you miss a lot. So that's my 2 cents. And it's funny because you as you were talking, it's like this like my eyes are going big, and I am just getting excited about it, because it's real, and I think we missing these things. And thank you for bringing the idea of simple trainings. What is a week? You give the week, and you're going to prepare that person to become better, and therefore she's first of all, I think that person will always appreciate you, and they'll
Mhm.
go more and do more, because
Of
not only
course.
you've given them a chance, you've taken away the biggest burden. The biggest burden is, my job is on the line.
Hmm.
That means I'm going to have problems. So if you take that stress away, and that's the other thing, we don't get this. We stress people to a level, and we think the mental state is not even a factor in our business leadership, I guess, vocabulary. And I have not seen a lot of companies take care of that. They may give you a hotline, hey, if you have mental issues, you can do this, but it's not
Yeah.
related to your business, right? To work. But we do give stress, cortisol goes up, people are not effective. That's
Mhm.
simple. Isabel, just one more thing, because I get excited about this. You know, like I'm always against meetings at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. This is just my own strategy. I found that it was not productive over the years. When you get people rushing through traffic, especially in big major cities and stuff, they have to get up early, they have to stress themselves, get into the traffic, spend hours to just get in, and by the time they're there, they're not really focused. They have nothing. Their system is already on up to the roof there in terms of format, and they don't deliver. I found when I do meetings later, and they come comfortable. I mean, they start their day, no stress. And they come to meeting, they're prepared, they're happier, and they give better result. That's just my little experience personally. It worked for me and my teams. Again, maybe you give us some advice on that area, and what do you think about it?
Yeah,
But so,
oh, that's you're gonna laugh at my answer. I'm against meetings.
I
I do meetings standing up,
love it.
and especially if we have problems to solve. I don't want to. There's no coffee allowed in my meetings. There are no nuts or muffins or whatever. I don't want them comfortable. Stay standing.
And out.
And most of the time, with my direct reports in my company, um, we do meetings walking. I say, okay, everybody, quarter to 12, we have a meeting. And they know exactly because they've been working with me for a while. They know exactly what that means is I'm in the lobby. I am dressed, even if it's very cold. I live in a cold country in the winter, in our winter, where we go outside. And I found that, first of all, if we're physically active, it the the ideas flow, but there's something very symbolic about walking together in the same direction. We're not sitting. I, by the way, I have no conference table in my offices. We don't, you know, I don't take the high chair and the comfortable chair at the end of the table like the father of the no. We walk in the same direction, and ever since I've started doing that, it's been working wonders. And I'm going to tell you something. I've done doing that with my romantic partner, and it works wonders too, because we walk together in the same direction. And physically, it is a reminder that we're not adversary. We are together in this. We have chosen our one another to go through life. So it's the same thing with my team. We've chosen to go through this mission we've given to aim at this vision, you know, to improve that vision that we have, and we're going to do it together. So no, there's no sitting down with muffins and coffee and chit-chatting about the weekends. No. And if ever, and it does happen, it happens rarely, but whenever it is necessary, they they stay standing. There's 14 minutes on the clock because 15 is too long. Get to the point. And I'm very, it is for me, a meeting is about, we have something in particular. We need everybody to come together. We're going to talk about that thing, period. And I find, I don't know about the rest of the world, but I find in North America, especially in bigger corporations, it's, you know, don't feel like working today, call a meeting. Like we waste so much time talking about the fact that we're going to talk about the thing that maybe we're eventually going to do something about this. That's a meeting for me. That doesn't mean I'm right. It's just that's been my experience. I remember in the military, the meetings were very short. This is except for, by the way, except for post-mortem. So we went on exercise, we practiced doing a mission X, and we came back, and all of us sat down and said, okay, where
Brief.
did we go wrong? Now
Mhm.
everybody gets to chip in because that's constructive. Okay, so on my part, this is what happened. And it was never about blame. Is it how can we optimize for the next time? So okay, on my part, I got this late in the game for me because it's not about you didn't bring it to me on that. No, in the things that I have to do, I should have, or it's optimal to receive it one step before. This is why. So now the other person can go, oh, okay, no, I didn't take this into consideration. Well, of course you didn't, because that's not your job. So, okay, so we're going to restructure when everybody does their part so that next time it's optimal. Okay, we come together, we talk about this. This is what the game plan is for next time. Perfect. A week later, we go back. We did do the same, or we practice the same mission. And then we do another postmortem. This is what a meeting is all about. We're
You know,
going to
Isabel,
talk about the thing that we're going to maybe talk about eventually. And perhaps, uh, yeah, no, not for me. Thank you.
you know, you're touching on something, and actually, it's going to relate to the question now, which is what mistakes CEOs and leaders today are making in, you know, with their teams. And I tell you, this is this. So I've been in sales, and so business development, sales operations. So it's very active, right? And you know, you would think that internal operations typically are as active, but what I've discovered over the years is that, to your point, people generate meetings on the calendars to show that they are actually working. And
Yeah.
that's a bottom line fact. You know, folks,
Yes.
whether you like it or not, if you're watching this, that's the reality. Because to your point, is like we meet to discuss the agenda of the next meeting, and at the end of the meeting is like there's no deliverables, there's nothing. To your point, there's nothing. So when I said I stopped the meetings, because those, like, let's say when we have trainings, whatever, but like literally we would meet once a month. That's if anything. And we're always on the field with the team. So we actually meet with them, we talk to them, we give them guidance, whatever we need. It's very simple. And I love what you said, when you have too many people in one room, if we grab right now 10 people in this talk show and bring them on, everybody's going to have something to talk about and say something, and we're going to literally veer out quickly from the discussion of the stuff. We'll find out ourselves talking about a cruise ship before we actually get back to the stuff. And that's what happens, right? So you literally, I swear to God, you remind me of my leader, captain from the Air Force, because that's exactly, even in his like emails, he's like, give me 3 bullets, what are we discussing, bullet 1, 2, and you have to be selective, ABC, boom. So we know how long is it going to take, and that's it. That's how we emailed each other. That's how we worked. And it was very effective. We come, we have a board, bullet, then action, go, done. So it was a very, and by the way, I love that debrief concept, because yes, when you have action, so where did we go, wrong? Did we do? What did we good? What blah. So we do that. But to your point, it is a practice that is not very common across. I mean, so in companies you have different departments, and I think that's the thing. Every department operates in their own frequency, and
Of course.
and the leadership or the CEOs, I would say, I feel that, and this is not a judgment, but it's just based on observation, is they don't put everybody at the same accountable level. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen it that way, because listen, you talked about sales being the biggest team, the biggest funded, but also the biggest risk and the biggest
Yes.
return, turnaround
ROI,
of
yeah.
staffing.
Yeah.
ROI and turnaround, because people
Yeah.
don't perform, they leave, right? And so it's costlier and stuff like that. So there's a difference. But the other departments, they tend to just kind of, you can get a cushy job and be in an operation setting and be there for years, nothing happens. You're in sales, it's dynamic, right? And so what I noticed, like, they don't put everybody accountable to the overall objective of the company, and that's another problem. So
Mhm.
is that so let's hit that now. What these sounds like mistakes that CEOs and leaders are making. Am I in that bulk? Am I in the same page here? In terms of these things,
The biggest mistake, you mean? Biggest mistake
biggest
that
mistake
leaders make?
CEOs are making now.
Hmm. I find that the biggest mistake most leaders make at any level is tolerating bad behavior or tolerating underperformers. And they count on their overperformers to pick up the slack. And nothing in my experience, I've been at this for a while, nothing in my experience will kill the motivation of a good employee faster than watching a leader tolerate a bad one in attitude and in performance. Because you teach the rest of the team that that's okay. And if it's not, then it's not. That's one of the thing that is on my team is you do not pick up the slack for anybody. Now that doesn't mean you don't help. That's not what that means. There's a difference between the two. You don't do on a regular basis picking up the slack, that's what it means. You don't do on a regular basis the task that belongs to somebody else. If Because it's either um, an organizational problem, so maybe that person has too much on their plate, so there's for 50 hours of work a week and I want them to work 35. So if that's the problem, then I need to look at that. But if somebody picks up the slack, then I don't know that I have that problem. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is maybe it's a performance thing. So if it's a performance thing, now I have to meet with, if it's a direct report, I have to meet with that person and say, okay, where did I fail you? Do you have enough skills? Do you have the training? Are you equipped? Because sometimes it's an equipment thing. Are you equipped? Is there everything? Did I put everything in at your disposition for you to do that task? If the answer is no, then it's a me problem. then I have to fix that problem for you because that's my job. If it's not a me problem, then we have to look at what's going on with you. Why are you underperforming? And not in a more of a, are you okay? Are you going through a divorce and I didn't know about it? Are you going, is your mom dying and I didn't know about it? That would, in both cases, that I don't see that happening because they're really open with me. But it's still a, where does the problem lie? Is it temporary? Is it permanent? How can I support you? Do you need to work less? If so, do I have to hire somebody else? And if so, that's what I'm going to do. But you have to put people in the position to win. If you put your people in a position to fail, that's what they're going to do. But we're back to courage. You have to have the courage of looking at what is really happening. And I think that most leaders, and we all have blind spots, all of us have cognitive biases. You have to have a team in place that can look at your canoe and say, Isabelle, this is where your canoe is leaking water. It's taking in water. Let me put my finger in there so it doesn't anymore. It's not about blame, it's about help. And if you install that culture about being there for one another and supporting one another and being empathic towards one another and being patient and kind and giving the grace that the people deserve, then you build that culture and then you become very protective of who you let in. And by the way, for any of the listeners thinking empathy is a waste of time in a company culture, let me give you real stats. Empathy has been proven, this is not my opinion, and a tall purple hair lady, it's been proven to increase productivity by an astonishing 86%. So now look at your numbers and tell me how that improves your bottom line. I don't know about you, but I'm in business to make money because, I try to pay my mortgage with hugs and kisses and, the bankers want money back. So why not use what actually works? And empathy works. It's hard sometimes, but it still works. So try that. So
Why is
biggest
about
mistake is that.
Well, thank you, Isabel. I mean, there's a couple of things there. One is really the spirit of a team. I mean, that's the other part, right? I mean, as a unit, yeah, you're the leader, but you talked about picking up the slack or helping, working together, empathy, all this stuff. You know, again, you come from a military background, so concept of team. There's leaders, but we all one unit. There's a mission. Everybody has to perform, flawlessly, according to each other. Yes, we can help each other, guide each other, work with each other. But at the end of the day, everybody's got an actual part of the mission. If you fail, everybody else fails. So
Mhm.
it makes a difference. And I also think, one thing that you alluded to here is the power of proper communication and proper provision of tools, as you said, like, providing the right, tools. Because I see a lot of places they can hire people, but, there is not enough for them. There's not enough tools. They, like, for example, I've had these challenges myself. Like, you go to a company and they want you to lead a department. Like, what can we have? We need one, two, XYZ. Well, we can't give you XYZ. Well, without XYZ, it's like, going to a battle with knives, against, grenades and tanks. I might still go out there, but there's a good chance I'm not going to be effective, right? So it changes the dynamic. So what you said is really like, but I think also another kudos here is the idea of accountability, self accountability. As a leader, you have to be responsible. If something's off with your team, you start questioning, like, what am I doing wrong? Have I given everything? And I think when we do that as leaders, then we also, that actually, goes downstream to the team, and they can see that. When they see that you are just as responsible, and really you feel bad about, anything that's going on in the operation because you've failed one thing, and you are also admitting, because that's the other thing, a lot of people in position of power, they don't admit of error or mistakes or their weaknesses because they feel that's actually going to take, they will undermine their authority, which I
Yeah.
think is the opposite. I think that's
Yes.
exactly what you just shared right now.
Yes. It I Oh my goodness. If you could see the thoughts going through my head, the best way to gain trust is to give it. It's the fastest, best way to gain trust. And as a leader, if you want your trust to admit the mistake, if you want your team members to come to you and say, hey, listen, I have a problem, you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong, and you have to be willing to go to them when you have a problem. The best and fastest way to gain trust is to give it first. And that's another thing that leaders don't do is like, oh yeah, but I have to hide my mistakes. No, tell them, hey, I say that to my team 3 times a day. Okay, so in the category of how, I effed up today, the winner goes to Isabelle. And then they start laughing and they go, what'd you do? And we all laugh because they helped me fix it. But
Well, this goes to the human factor,
yeah,
Isabel, because we are human, right? I mean,
yeah,
we're not perfect.
no, no, exactly. You have to be willing to show that you make mistakes, and that the most costly mistakes are usually made on top.
You mentioned something earlier, ego. I think that's a very lethal thing that a lot of leadership, sometimes adopts as an air or an aura or an energy or a vibe. And I think that
Yes,
kills a lot of stuff. I think
yes,
ego's got to be down the tubes, down the drain. We should put it aside. There's no ego in business in a team because at the end of the day, uh, none of us is better than all of us. I think we can just do more together. And yes, I mean, you obviously you're the head of the company. You have a responsibility, and at the same time, but the responsibility is to what are the shareholders, the higher ups, or the team, or the
yes,
clients. I mean, it's actually literally
yeah.
three facades, right? You have to actually manage all that stuff, and it's not easy for people to sometimes comprehend it. I love what you said. So leaders today, if they're trying to evolve, I mean, to a better leadership scale or better leadership level, what's the first thing or shift they need to make?
They need to speak once a week to their direct reports. Actually, let me correct that. They need to sit down with their direct reports once a week and shut up and let the person talk. And I used to have a boss when I was in the military. It was 17,000 years ago, it feels like. It was a new major. He was posted in my squadron, and I had an office in the hangar, and he would come to my office and he would sit at my office and say nothing. I was a corporal, if that. I think I was a private. He would say nothing. And I would look at him and say, good morning, Major. Morning. Anything I can do for you, sir? Nope. Do you like can I get you like something? Nope. You're doing well, sir? Yep. And he would sit there in complete silence. And until, because most human beings don't like silence, until I spoke up. And then I would talk about, then I would go rambling, blah, 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 forever. And he would do that with every single private and every single corporal in the squadron, every single one of us. And we would talking about, he made us feel uncomfortable, like I'm gonna open my big mouth and I'm gonna fit both my feet in it, right? And me at 17, oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many times I thought I had said too much, or and him and I became friends. Him and his wife and I became friends. And about 3, 4 years later, I asked him, I said, can you, for the love of all that is good, explain what you were doing in my office every day saying nothing? He said, I just showed up in the squadron. If I wanted to know what was really happening, I wasn't going to ask my captains. I was going to ask the people who are quite literally at the bottom of the food chain, because they're going to tell you the truth. And because human beings don't like silence, I just didn't say a word and I listened until you guys finished by telling me everything I needed to know in order to fix it. So, you're the leader, you want your company values to be implemented, you want to know what's going on with 3 levels down or 5 level down. Go in their office and don't say a word. And people are going to end up talking to you because they're going to eventually feel that you're actually listening. And that's the first thing. Sit down with them, ask them how they are outside of business. You good? Oh, you change your cars. Oh, you're shopping for a car. Wonderful. What you looking at? Show real human interest in the person. What'd you do this weekend? And actually care about the answer. And it starts with that.
It's so powerful. And it is appreciated. I mean, again, even as a leader, you always want, I mean, again, there's different types of personalities. Not everybody is always gonna want to be too personal and stuff, but
No.
the idea of you being there for them, the idea that you're willing to listen and they can talk to you about anything and everything that's affecting life, because they know. Because here's the thing, you mentioned something, interesting. Uh, in the work environment, you become a family. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, they become part of it's like it's almost like it's one or the other. Like, because if you screw up at work and let's say you don't have a job, now you have problems at home. If you have problems at home, you can have problems at work. So it's kind of like you have to balance. Like we hear this life and work balance, kind of concept. It's a real thing, and if leaders can operate better to this point that you mentioned, where you're really out there with the team, spending time. And by the way, this is something I've implemented a while ago. Literally, I had actually top leadership, schedules to actually spend time in the field at the lowest level, the most entry point, out there, because they were so distant from what was going on. They didn't have a clue. Like when you go to meetings, they tell them this is what we experienced. Like, no, that can't happen. No, it is happening. Hey, why don't you come and take a look and see what these people are facing? For example, listen, we were in New York. I've heard a few f bombs, thrown in my face back in the days, as an agent, right? And a few other things. I mean, I've heard one time a person said, "You guys killed my husband." I mean, literally,
Mm.
because the company had some health centers, and the health centers, didn't take care of her husband. He passed away.
Mm.
But in her mind, it's the same one and the same as a company.
Yeah.
So we were the first front, facing, folks with that shirt that said the company name, and then you just killed my husband. I mean, it was like, whoa, what a mind crazy, concept here. But that's the thing. People don't realize what the facing agents are, or the customer service are hearing every day. And some leaders don't even listen. They have no clue. They just have and that's the other thing. There's so
Yeah.
many layers in some of these big companies that they're like so far up, in the food chain, that they have no clue what's going on within. And then I've seen actually some CEOs that are really entrenched. I mean, which I admire. They literally spend, every day they walk around, they talk to everyone, they stop by, they hang out with people, they schedule time in the
Hmm.
field to visit. And that's just two different, levels of I guess personalities and leadership skills, right? But the ones that win are the ones that do, and the ones that lose, and eventually they're not leading anymore because they just fail. And yeah, but so question for you, Isabel. I know we passed the hour, but uh, you mentioned something about like how the generational stuff changed, and we are in a whole different, world with the new generation in terms of work ethics and stuff like that. Now, how do you see, with your expertise, the future of leadership, facing, the new way of operations, the new way of work ethics? Because I think that's going to make a big difference. And for anyone who's aspiring to lead, whether at a mid-level, high level, or even run business and open business and be at a CEO level, that's going to be a tough place to be, because they need to create that culture. So what do you say to that?
Well, right now it's actually very interesting because right now it is the first time in the history of the world that we have 5 generations active in the workplace at the same time. So there's a big clash there. And I'm like you, I'm a Gen X, we're a little bit of rebels. if I if I if I want to be polite.
70s, baby.
I was gonna say badass. Um,
That's okay. We are.
but yeah, but I think that between us and two generations down, there's a big generation gap, and between us and the generation and the boomers that came before, there's a big generation gap. What is going the future was going to look like? I honestly have no idea. I hope to God it's going to be more human centered, but at the same time, it also has to keep a certain level of productivity. So, but honestly, right now it's a hot mess out there. And it's actually, this might sound bad, but it's actually very entertaining to watch from the outside. It's true. I know I get very easily amused. But yeah, no, it's very entertaining because you get the youngsters that, don't even show up for an interview and aren't, haven't heard the word no since they've been on this planet, and you get the boomers that go, "What is this, mess?" It's yeah, it's where we heading? I honestly hope, I can't say that I think, I honestly hope that we are going in a direction where we truly understand that humans are here, are put on this planet to serve one another. That's what I hope and pray for, is that where we're heading. I think that the pendulum is going to swing from one side to the other, and it's going to come back to the first side, because that's what pendulum does. Um, so I don't have a real answer for you. The only thing that I can say is what I wish for.
Well, no,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I mean, that's your honest, I mean,
Yeah.
this
That's
is
my
your
honest
world.
opinion.
And this is your world, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because it is a big question and no one knows. I mean,
No.
and I mean, we add to it like AI now, which is the biggest thing, and the adoption of AI. Some leaders may be more prone to that versus
Yeah.
or maybe opposed to it. That can be also a challenge. So we have a lot of challenges ahead of us in the world of
Yes.
business and how it all operates. Well,
Yeah.
listen, so now let's talk about you and your business. How can people, reach out to you and work with you, and how does your program work with them? I mean,
They,
are you in
I'm sorry.
Canada and the US, or can be anywhere?
I can be anywhere because a lot of the job that I do is actually online. So that's the thing with the pandemic, is that it's opened a lot of horizons as working from home. So they can reach me on LinkedIn, Isabelle Fortin. I am truly the only Isabelle Fortin with purple hair, even though there's, I think, 154 of us. I'm the only one with purple hair. I'm pretty easy to find. Even if you see that the taglines in French, as you've been hearing for the past hour and somewhat 20 minutes about, we can work together in English. I have a website, it's againsttheordinary.com. And I'm not going to go into everything that I can do for a leader or for a team, just because it is custom for that leader and it is custom for that team. So you want to know more, just DM me or go to the website, and Isabelle at againsttheordinary.com, and you can connect with me. And thank you for the opportunity.
No, no, it's an honor, pleasure. I had so much. I told you this is a topic that's dear, and I enjoyed this. I mean, it is fascinating the work you do, and really helping people, I guess change their minds of things in a positive way. And really, you are actually impacting a lot of folks because, again, work is part of life, and if you can help, these folks understand it and operate within those parameters in a very positive, productive way. I think everybody's a winner. So you're changing everybody to a win. So I do recommend big time, if you're listening, watching, and checking out the description of the show and getting the link directly to Isabelle's website. I think you will be more than happy to utilize the services and hopefully get. I know there's going to be results there because I don't think any company out there is doing it 100%. I'm sorry, but that's just my feeling. So I think everybody sometimes needs the fresh eye from the outside to look in.
Mhm.
And it's very easy when you're not in a company to see what's going on wrong.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
your assessments are going to be very, very, constructive to the folks. Of course, they're willing to invest in the future of their company, and that's really what it is. So I know we've exceeded our hour, Isabel.
Yeah.
Anything you want
And
to?
I'm late.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well,
It's
so I'm
okay. I
not even
didn't
going to
tell
ask.
you.
I'm not going to ask any other questions. I just want to thank you so much for being with us and for a
Thank
lot of good
you so
stuff.
much.
And that's about it, folks. This is the end of the show. Hope you had a great time with us. And yeah, we'll be talking soon with the end of the show, the topic. Bye for now.